Look at that squirrel. There was a time and place for all of this. It was unique. It was novel. You could make something of yourself. Just doing simple things like this. The market has been diluted. Too many people, not enough pie. So now this stuff gets relegated to just free use things. It goes up on the YouTube, you know. People can watch it. You get views. I mean, can you monetize a channel? I mean, maybe you can monetize a channel like this. It gets a couple million views and you can make some money. Passively, but only a few people can monetize it. Few as in the grand scheme of things, maybe in the hundreds. What you end up with mostly is just a lot of samey content. That little fucker doesn't give a shit about anything. He's just eating. Life is very simple for a squirrel. You just stay alive and eat. And stay alive and mate and eat and stay alive and he doesn't care. Just having fun. Doing his thing. It makes you wonder, though, what runs through the mind of an animal. Do they have the capacity for cognitive thought? Do they have a conscience? Are they aware of themselves, or are they just machines that scurry around the planet doing their thing, serving no real purpose? Which begs the question, what is a person really, other than we delude ourselves into believing that we have some grand design and function, but really we're no different than this squirrel. We're just scurrying around trying to keep ourselves alive, do what we can. We have no purpose. We have no grand mechanism that guides us. We're just these things that exist. We're directionless, and we fool ourselves into believing that it's all for something. But the reality is as cold and as harsh as one can imagine. I mean, there's nothing. You are just what you are. And when you're no longer that, you are nothing. You can't even wrap your mind around it. As simple as it is, it's the most complex thing in the world. But do you think squirrels actually think about that? Probably not. The smaller the mind you have, the simpler your life is. Your life is basically comprised of a short time scale And when you don't have the capacity for cognitive thought, you can just scurry around and do these things. You don't have to torture yourself with the idea of what awaits us in the beyond, if there is even anything. What purpose of life do we have? Did I do the best that I could with the life that I've had? All these ridiculous philosophical concepts and ideas that just don't amount to shit. If we just did what we were supposed to do, which I take that back, we're not supposed to do anything. If we just did what we could do, I think all of us, overall, much happier existence. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and we torture ourselves with this notion of being something more than what we are, to strive to achieve and be better than we are, to build something. Isn't that, after all, what society really is? It's striving to build towards something. We don't know what, but we're building towards something. Maybe one day that answer will appear, or maybe it never will. But in the meantime, we'll just continue pushing on, doing what we do, pretending like we have a clue. And this little guy, him or one of the billions of iterations of him will continue to scurry around searching for food and mates and safety, shelter. A very simple life. A life not fraught with consequence. I stumbled on one of my old streams from 4 years ago on a different channel talking about COVID. It was April of 2020 that I did the stream. And it's amazing how... It's not amazing. Anyone who actually stopped and looked at the situation and just didn't become a hyperbolic mess could identify what was going on and what the results were going to be and how things were going to pan out. I'm not claiming I'm clairvoyant or Nostradamus or anything like that. I mean, it was there for everyone to see. If anyone actually cared to take a look, stop pretending that this thing the media is telling us is the be-all, end-all is actually what it is. And it's not just mass delusion. But there's just so many voices in this world, so many people screeching, pretending as though they matter. But there's a reality that none of us want to actually face, and it's simple that unless you've done egregiously horrible things, just terrible fucking things to the people around you, history won't remember you. And that's a fucking fact. Your legacy will be long forgotten. Because we care more about those who harm us and fail us than we do about the people who actually live a life that we all aspire to live, or at least we claim we aspire to live. These things that we actually think we care about, but we actually don't. You're more willing to give a drug addict who has failed recovery hundreds of times over. You're more willing to give them your attention, your focus, and infinite amounts of forgiveness and hope than you will for someone who actually walks the straight and narrow. Because you're more interested in their story and their plight. It's more interesting. And this bullshit lie that we tell each other that about empathy is all for naught. Empathy only exists when someone can selfishly extract what they need from the endeavor. Empathy on its own doesn't exist. We are selfish beings out for ourselves. Abso-fucking-lutely. People will lie to their death, to their own detriment. You could hold a gun to their head and tell them to tell the truth on the matter, and they wouldn't even know how to comprehend what situation they're in. And you would most likely have to pull the trigger because their brains would literally shut down at the prospect because they've never once thought of it. It's never been anything that's ever crossed their mind. The question itself is so baffling, or the suggestion is so baffling. They're unable to process it. I've seen this happen so many times in my life, and that's what it all brings it around for me to just feel as though people are just simple animals, but we fool ourselves into believing that we're more than we are. And this most frightening aspect of all of this to anyone is being exposed for what we actually are. And we're so desperate to be more than that we will lie to everyone around us and ourselves and maintain lies that should be exposed. Everything should be brought to light, but it will never be brought to the light because we're comfortable in the lie. We depend on the lies that we tell ourselves and each other to maintain any sort of sensible society. It all functions on that, because otherwise we're just these automatons that coexist on a planet with no real direction or purpose and are capable of anything. And that's the ultimate irony to me, is that we fashion ourselves in these systems of laws and this idea of justice. But laws and justice only apply when the crime is committed. They don't prevent the crime from being committed. But yet we as a people enshroud ourselves in this idea of safety because these laws exist, as though it's some sort of shield, and it has never been a shield. Ever. Yet people believe that when we create more laws, we further enshrine ourselves in this protective force field away from all the harms and dangers of the world. That's how committed we are to the lie. That we will actually force our will onto other people in service of propagating the lie that we've committed to ourselves. It holds no water, bears no weight. It is a lie. Yet it's all we've got. It's terrifying, really. I've said this before. The most terrifying thing to me that I can ever imagine is having to do all of this over again. That is such a terrifying thought to me that I don't even like to think about it. I start to think about it and I just have to start thinking about something else, because really things have sucked so much and for so long. It's never going to get any better. And the idea that I'd have to do all this all over again, that to me is like, it just fills me with dread and anxiety. But no more dread, no more such than the idea that it's an inescapable loop, that you will never be free of this. You will always return to this and always repeat this. You'll have no memory of your prior iteration, and you will constantly repeat these cycles over and over. But the cycle will always be the same. And you will never understand it, and never realize it, never process it, because you can't take any of those physical memories with you. They were bound to your physical form prior. Because that's where memories are stored, in the physical. They're not stored anywhere else. So when your physical body dies, any stored capacity that you had to retain that information is gone. So naturally, if there is a spirit and something that could return, it can't bring any of that with it. People argue all the time that there is a dream state that we tap into, and this otherworldly subconscious that we are all, collective subconscious that we're all tied into, that can tell us these things and show us these things that are haunting memories of prior lives and past this and that and yada yada yada. It's like, well, that's all well and good, but we can't prove any of that, and you can't extract any real useful information from that in the present situation that you're in. So you glean nothing from it. So even talking about it, it's nice. It's all, oh, spacey, man, cool, but it goes nowhere. That's circular, just like the pursuit of science is circular. And it's all in the service of trying to keep us going as a society for some unknown reason. But we've never really, I guess I can't say that. Many people have tackled and grappled with the concept of why is it that we do the things we do? Why are we so possessed to do these things? It's almost like we're programmed to do certain things. I think about it from a very young age, coming up in the world, and I think about how I just didn't understand the world, no matter how much family or teachers, clergy, whoever pointed at anyone, and this is what I was up against. People trying to explain the ways of the world to me, and it's like it never made any sense. So like, I don't understand the world you people live in and how it makes sense to anyone. But when you're a kid and you have no responsibilities, it's like the idea of responsibility seems like so far-fetched and ridiculous. It's like, why would anyone want to do this? But yet I'm so far removed from the periods of human existence where it wasn't an option. It was what you did. When you are born, you are born into a hard struggle of life and death. Your life is basically just spend all your time hunting and gathering and mating and trying to stay alive. Fighting off disease, fighting off predators, fighting off other people in a never-ending pursuit to save yourself for long enough to where, for some purpose, I mean, it's the lifespan, the fight or flight thing. It's this instinctive desire that we have to protect ourselves and maintain ourselves. But we're all going to die, which is the ultimate irony of it. We're instilled with this hard-coded genetic predisposition to survive. But that is something we are never going to do. We're completely incapable of it. Yet it's the one thing that we grasp onto and hold on to tightest. What if we just abandon that? And that's why I think that if we actually... I've had theories about this in the past, how I believe that generations before us had to have unlocked the mystery of consciousness, but maybe to catastrophic results. I mean, if we could remember into long after our living body dies and retain memories going into a new form or a reincarnated form or whatever you want to call it, however you want to think about it, like, it would be such a torturous experience to know that everything is just repeating over and over, and that there's still no more answers than there were before. Like if they announced on the news tomorrow that scientists have discovered that reincarnation is real, there have been people who've come back who have clear memories of their past and know they've been reincarnated. What has changed based on that revelation? What in human existence and human evolution has actually changed? If anything, you've created more anxiety. Because now not only do you have a lifespan in which to fail, succeed, accomplish, waste your time, be lauded, be loved, whatever lifestyle you choose, whatever the course of your life you choose to live. Now, not only do you have one lifespan, you have infinite numbers of lifespans. I mean, to some it would be great because now they can experience everything their life has to offer. They have all the time in the world. But all the time in the world in this physical capacity is more torturous than people want to understand. Because there are the limits of our reality that are all around us. They're clear as day. There are clear limits. And with an infinite lifespan, you'll reach those limits pretty damn early. And what happens when you reach those limits? When all of society is fully aware of the limits that cannot be broken, and the fact that their life is now a cyclical game. It's a never-ending cycle of repeating the same limits over and over and over. What then? I'd imagine you'd have a lot of people just losing faith, losing hope. The morale of the entire species would be eradicated over time. But if you had the capacity to change that, if society fell to such a point to where people were just stopped doing anything because they knew it was all for nothing. They've done it. They've learned all they can. They've explored all they can explore. Everything is done. All the music's been written. All the stories have been written. Everything has been done time and time and time again. And you have memory of it all. You cannot shake that memory. You know everything. You've experienced everything. The depression would be off the charts. So how do you instill joy back into a world that is plagued with eternal life and eternal memory? Well, if you can't do anything about the eternal life, you might be able to do something about the eternal memory. That's one of the things I've hypothesized. What if we, in a previous eons ago, what if we were more advanced, a long time ago, but we decided that we had to eradicate that one aspect of our being, the memory aspect. We had to almost put a timer on that stuff. Give ourselves a limited capacity for memory to keep ourselves sane. For when the cycles occur, we don't tear ourselves apart knowing that all of this has happened before and will always happen again. We chose to forget. And in doing so, we propagated a never-ending cycle of a species that's not going anywhere, but is living a convenient lie, man-made lie, just to self-perpetuate. Because as long as we can just wipe the slate clean and start over again, we can do whatever we want. We can be whoever we want. But my thought is that even though I wouldn't know that I've been reborn or reintroduced to this world, just the idea that it would happen and I'd have to do all this over again, and that nothing I can do will ever free me from the cycle, is so just deeply saddening to me. This fucking bird. Birds and squirrels, man, they're so similar in a lot of ways. They just do what they do. That's not necessary. I mean, birds are kind of territorial. There is a weird, how should you put it, pecking order to birds. Like earlier in the video, there were a few blue jays. Blue jays are murderous. And I've never known that about birds. You never think, oh, well, bird, unless it's like a bird of prey. But just a standard, like, bird like that, you wouldn't think they'd be murderous. And it's not as though, like, blue jays eat other birds. No, they just kill them for show, as a display of dominance. It's creepy. They're highly territorial. I wouldn't trust a blue jay. Hello, Dan the Man and Red Feather, by the way. Tune in just as you say, history won't remember me. That hurts. Yeah. Well, go out and commit a murder. Go out and murder a fucking CEO of a healthcare company, and then you'll be remembered. Go do that. Go try to assassinate a president, then you'll be remembered. We write you in our history books and we teach children about what you've done, then you'll be remembered for a short period of time. I mean, if you really put it into context, I mean, there's things that happened in, like, the 4th and 5th century of this world. I mean, we've got we got historical records of things that happened in that period, but there's plenty of things. Plenty of people who lived on the planet, and a lot of people whose stories are lost to time. Entire societies lost to time. Their stories are not remembered, nor would anyone care to remember. And half the stories that we tell ourselves of these age-old times are just our interpretations of whatever literature was left behind. So to say it's even accurate is contentious, because there's many schools of thought on how to interpret dialogue, things written from an age where dialogue was just different, words were different. And that's what I mean by when I say human engineered propensity to destroy our own history and our own memory. It's pervasive even to this day in how we alter our own language. And we've always altered our language. Words mean different things over centuries, decades to centuries past, and we change the meanings of words. Did that bird just shit on its food? God, birds are stupid. I mean, the implication is that when you start to change the meaning of words, you start to change the memory of history. And eventually, when you've changed it and altered it enough, your reading of history is false, because you've forgotten what the meaning of those words were, because it's so radically changed over time. Now, human endeavor has been the same. Human behavior typically remains the same. So there's always like an anchor point. There's always a linchpin that keeps you grounded in the efforts to decipher what someone may have meant. I mean, it's not just you take one word and just face value base it on that. You have to put it in the context of all the other things. But oddly enough, we have done enough. We've in our lifetime have seen enough bad actors in our own society who try to alter language in such a way to almost eradicate certain words and to really engineer society's memory of history. People who are obsessed with destroying and eradicating or changing history to fit, specific narratives they want it to fit. And I don't believe that this is a unique thing. I believe that this has been going on since throughout all of humankind, human existence. We just put it into different contexts. We frame it in different ways. Like, oh, it was, this group of people trying to suppress this group of people. Or it's the church. The church was trying to suppress this and blah, blah, blah. Like any sort of organized religion or government whose a kingdom, a people's, everyone wants to get their own grasp on things and control things. And it's odd to me how we as a people just That's one of the things that we do a lot. And we've done it throughout history. And why should you think, especially in this day and age where we have what we would consider our best manner, of recording the behaviors of humankind and keeping, very, very detailed records of these things, why we are so obsessed with altering these records. Sorry, my sound wasn't working. What kind of bird is this? Oh, I have no idea what kind of birds these are. I'm just putting it on the background. My wife is at a Christmas party for her employer. She works at Mellow Cream International. Yes, she makes the donuts. You're probably wondering why I didn't go. And the answer to that question is they had the party right after work. So it's like they all got off work and then went straight to the party. And she works out of town, so I wasn't going to drive over there just to attend a party with a bunch of people I don't fucking know. She's going because her friends from work are going, so she's going. They begged her to go with them, so she's going. At least that's the story she tells me. It could be something completely different. I know some of my friends are like, dude, what if she's hooking up with some people there? I'm like, you know what? I'm fucking 48 years old. So is she. If she wants to hook up with a fucking Mellow Cream employee, fine. If she wants to end our marriage for some dude who works at fucking the same place she works, fine. If that's what is important to her at this juncture in her life, fine. I couldn't care less. I would think she was insane, but, the heart wants what the heart wants. I hate Christmas parties. I don't blame you. I avoided my own. Actually, I was supposed to go hiking, but the weather went so stupid. It went from flash flooding levels of rain when I was originally going to go, to super frigid cold winter weather when I was rescheduled to go. So I ended up spending my entire vacation at home. It sucked. A Mellow Cream employee, yes. It's MEL -O -cream. It's a donut company that makes donuts for Hy-Vee and several other little places. Chickadee, is that what it is? All I know is there's a blue jay and a cardinal, there's a squirrel, and then there's a bunch of... That's a woodpecker. And a few other things. We have bird feeders in our backyard. We always put out food and check out the birds. I got hummingbirds in my backyard. It's nice. Nice, nice, nice. Marshmallow in a can thing? No, I don't think that's the same thing. Donuts, yeah. Look at that fucking bird. Jesus Christ. Stupid. I found out, God, when was it? Earlier this week? No, it was last week. Yeah, I don't know which one. Yellow beak. It could be anything. I'm not a part of the Audubon Society. I was informed last week that I'm no longer a manager at my job. Because the girl who worked for me ended up bidding. Well, she applied for another job in the company and got it, but that was last year. So I've been without an employee all year. And I guess that's the deciding factor on whether or not you're a manager or not. I mean, I kind of assumed that my department, as quote-unquote, was more based on my management of the production duties and details as they are, but I guess the COO of the company felt differently 4 days before we were supposed to get our Christmas bonus. And effective January 1st, I will no longer be salaried. I will be going back to hourly wage earning status. So I've lost my manager position, and I'm losing my salary. As far as I know, my pay hasn't changed, but who knows? That could all change too. Time to start identifying as a black disabled woman. I don't think that would really work at my job, to be honest. There's a blue jay. I've already started my preparations and planning for being unemployed, I should say. I had plans for my Christmas bonus. Those are obviously changed now. Which is funny. I was hoping to get... We have a Jeep Wrangler. And I've got about... In April, I'll have about $10,000 left to pay on it. I was hoping to have enough money saved back by that point to pay it off. However... We also have to pay the taxes on Soraya cashing out her 401k from last year. So I don't know how much of a hit that's going to take. We may end up having to pay this year. We may end up not getting any taxes back. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say what we're going to get. Hey, it's a mourning dove. I don't want to say we raise these, but we have nests. That was my laundry. We have nests in our yard. And every year the doves pop out about 6 or 7 of these per year. Sometimes more. One year we had 2 nests going simultaneously. So we've got to see a lot of little baby doves growing up in the past 5 years, 6 years, however long we've been here. Well, nevertheless... I'm still working on the idea of what I'm going to do. Hoping to get this Wrangler paid off. Because then I can free up that car payment and, try to do something before I lose my job. It's funny watching a dove eat. I'm more used to watching little baby doves pecking their beaks inside their mother's mouth. They're so cool. We also have another kind of dove around here that looks like them, but they're smaller and gray. Well, these are gray. I mean, this is a gray dove. It's just the light makes it look a little browner. It's kind of like a brownish gray, like a warm gray. We have cardinal nests, dove nests, and blue jay nests in our yard. Have you looked into the drone situation? If you're referring to the news that's been going on lately, no. I assume that this is going to be something that Congress is going to use to fearmonger, and because what a lot of people don't know is for the past year, Congress has been advocating this push towards banning drones in the United States. They are outright trying to ban the importation of DJI drones. because they claim it's Chinese spying bullshit. And this, whatever this is that's going on, I'm sure it's only going to help further their agenda to ban drones. I don't care. I'm really not into drones. I have one. I've used it several times, but it's like I still go back to the old. My initial thought. It's just kind of like a fad. You know, it doesn't really. I don't know. They're limited in application. FPV drones are kind of cool, but drones are just aerial. I don't know. They're just not that special. I've never viewed them as that special. The doves are half the size of full grown. Interesting. A barrel owl family live in our woods. We have owls around our neighborhood. I don't know what kind they are, but they're not in our yard. We see them from time to time. It's like it is like Wild Kingdom in our backyard. Funny enough, the Pentagon made a statement that they don't know whose drones they are, but they also said it's definitely not Iran. I saw that they're not worried about it. It's not really a threat, and that's. I mean, if it's an electric drone, like electrically powered drone, then yeah, there's nothing to worry about because these things cannot carry payloads. They can't. I mean, it would have to be the size of an actual, you know, like the drones we use to bomb people. It'd have to be that size of drone. If that's what it is, then that's understandable. But small electric drones, they don't have a huge payload capacity, and they don't have a large enough footprint to actually be any sort of threat. Now, if it's spy stuff, at this point, I don't know why anyone would get, you know, on their high horse about spying. We have fucking satellites in orbit around our planet that allow us to spy on other people. Like, we have the internet. We have TikTok. Why are we so obsessed about keeping up this Cold War nonsense about spying? Who gives a fuck? The Cold War is done. There's a lot of warmongers still in office who want all that shit to spark back up and want to take us back to this era of countries being terrified of one another, and the people just don't want it. They simply don't want it, and they're making their voices heard. They don't care, and more power to them. I'm happy about that, because the Cold War was stupid. It fucking sucked. When this happened a few years ago, it was Google updating maps. Well, why wouldn't Google just say that? I don't know. I don't know what the drones are. All I know is it's like many things. It's like a nothing burger. Is this the bird you're talking about, or are you talking about a different bird? Because this is like a blackbird. I mean, we get these. I don't know what their actual names are, but we get birds like this in the backyard too. They're kind of bullies, though. If it's no, because the wings are different than the ones we get. The ones we get are kind of big and they're kind of bullies. They're not like, you know, raven sized, but they're bigger than, you know, your little parakeet sized birds. But they're just big enough and dumb enough, like clumsy enough to just kind of like scare off all the other birds. I always thought that birds have to process things at lightning fast speed, because you see the way their heads twitch and how they move around, and everything's like just seems like in a fast motion. For the human perception, that'd be so sickeningly jarring. So their response time has to be so much faster than humans. And I guarantee you, everything that they see as far as like our physical world, and when they see like humans, we have to be moving in slow motion to them. Like when we look at a whale or something like that, that's must be like what they see when they see us. Like these slow moving, lumbering things. Like we pose no real significant threat on our own to them. Now, unless you get a firearm. But we're so lumbering and slow that it's like, and we're, you know, ground based. So to us, we're just like a curiosity. They have to be. They have to be able to process things way faster. Which would be interesting. And that's one of those things that I've said a lot. I have a lot of deep-rooted theories. Hey, Cardinal. We got a lot of them, too. One of my theories, that long-standing, long-held theories that I have yet to... I'd love to see someone try to prove me wrong, is that teleportation will never happen. I still hold on to that. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the Cardinal. I can't remember the second one. I was just thinking of it, too. And then this damn Cardinal, like, disrupted my thought process. I like Cardinals. They're very curious. I've been watching some old stuff. I was following up on a few little things. Basically just some old internet drama affairs. Some of the bigger players. The funny thing is, like, now that everyone's off YouTube, I just don't care to follow, to, like, go where they are to follow up with what they're doing. But, like, Ethan Ralph, man. That motherfucker has fallen off. So, it's funny to me how... Because I guess a video just... June the King made a sort of a YouTube documentary type of deal talking about Medicare. And kind of recounted a lot of the history of... And it's amazing how so much of that jumped off from fucking Gamergate. Gamergate truly was the fucking genesis of so many things. And it's amazing to me how so many people try to play it off like Gamergate was just horrible gamer, blah, blah. Like, Gamergate was a touchstone moment in society. It changed so much. So many things spread out and evolved from Gamergate. And I, even back then, I'm like, this is not that big of a deal. Like, why are people getting this, like, ethics and journalism? Okay, who, like, they're... All these game journalists are covering for one of their own, or covering for this girl that they're having relations with. Okay, so what? You people act like this isn't journalism 101, that this isn't something that's gone on. I mean, I guess my perspective back then was like, how innocent are you people? Honestly, like I guess that's when I first acknowledged that there was a definite age gap between me and the people who were really interested in Gamergate. I'm like, you people can't be serious. Like, this shit's been going on for decades. Like, this is not new. It's like, yeah, but, and it's always yeah, but, like, because it's happening to them and something that's interests them at the time. And since it's happening to them, it must be new. So it's like, but to watch how this nothing burger essentially grew into something as mammoth as it became, and then like exploded, and all the pieces sort of landed in all these weird and different places, and affected so many lives of so many different random people in all sorts of different, I mean, Jesus, it's affected our politics. It's affected our elections. Gamergate was a huge cultural thing. And it's just crazy to look back on it now and be like, man, Try to downplay it all you want. It really did matter. Did you hear about the Nick Fuentes stuff? Be more specific. I've seen things. I've seen footage. Let's just say that. This fucking Death Grips over here. Quoting Death Grips. Yeah. I saw that Nick Fuentes got arrested for battery. I didn't look into it because I'm not huge on Nick Fuentes. But yeah, I heard some things. Some troubling things. Some troubling things with him and Destiny. Butterfly effect, yeah. It's just a lot of those people went on to... It's funny to me because a lot of the people who were anti-Gamergate went on to get into real influential places in politics and journalism, and the pro-Gamergate people were just as prolific and just as influential, but they sort of got shuffled off the mainstream and thusly created this alternate, like, subversive alternative media, if you will. And that to me eclipsed, it basically became the moment in time when the poles flipped on political ideology, when the left started behaving way more conservative, and the supposed conservatives, or the alt-right, started acting way more liberal, way more radical and outlandish, and challenging the systems and not standing up for the status quo. And it's weird. It's like it was a complete polarity shift at that moment. Fuentes getting arrested for battery, and he's a court date the 19th. Who did he batter? Well, beside Medicare's dying. Medicare's been dying for a long time. Medicare's been dying for a very long time. I mean, when it comes to Medicare, I'll say this. I used to really enjoy his Gamergate stuff, his takes on Gamergate and the Internet Aristocrat stuff. Then he hit this point where I felt like what he was doing was no longer thought out and no longer like really. It's like he transitioned from being the narrator of a carnival freak show. Like he wasn't the person who was showing you the sides. He became the side. He jumped into the fray and started becoming part of the show. And that's when I'm like, okay, enough of him. I've been saying ever since Destiny first popped on the scene, I've always said the same thing. I write people off real fucking quick when it comes to the internet. There was just this one time where he was debating someone, and he cited as evidence for his side, for the point he was trying to make it, he cited a fucking New York Times article as evidence. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, that's not even a study. That's not even proof. That is a fucking report. That is a report from a highly contentious fucking publication, by the way. Like, that is very ideologically and narratively driven. It's like, so if you're not going to do your due diligence to actually research the stuff that you're talking about, then what are you? Who are you? It's like, and that's when it became clear to me, like, Destiny is literally just a fucking guy who wants clout on the internet and fast talk his way through actually having to back up anything he does. The fact that he's gotten as far as he has and has talked to as many influential people or popular, so to speak, people is just an indication of how fucked up the internet is. And I said this a long time ago too. Like, the thing I hate the most about the internet is that you never know who you're talking to. You end up in these conversations and talking to these people, and then you find out that they're like this drooling idiot, or they're 13 years old, or, you know, just different things. It's like, you don't know it at first, and you're engaged in these back and forths, and you're like, why am I... If you met this person in real life, you'd be like, why? I wouldn't waste a moment battling this person or speaking my point or making my case to this person, because look at them. This is what one of the deteriorating aspects of human interaction that the internet has sort of perpetuated, is that we have to take everything at face value and put far more value into words than need to be placed, because we use our other senses to suss things out, to save ourselves time, to be more ecumenical, if you will, with our time and our resources. We don't have to engage in arguments when you can take one look at the person and say, no, this person is not worthy of my argument, because look at them. If you knew you were having a conversation with someone who had 400,000 facial piercings, pink hair, and a fucking, rainbow t-shirt, you wouldn't... If you saw that first, you would never engage in the conversation. You would stop dead in your tracks and be like, no, this is going no further. It's like, because the reality is that when someone is projecting themselves in that manner to showcase what they're all about, which is basically rebellion, then there's not really much... It's all so surface level. And it's hard to explain this to people. It's like, this is what a lot of this outward rebellion look thing is. It's like, you can't be subversive, and you can't speak your mind and put actually any intellectual thought in it. You have to just rage against people, and that's what an outward manifestation of all of this is. It's just juvenile rage. And when you wear that with pride, you're basically saying, I don't have to think, I just have to do and shout and be and whatever, and people have to listen to me, or I'm going to stomp my feet and kick and scream and until I get my way. It's like, that's not how you have discourse, meaningful discourse. That's just how you throw a temper tantrum. It's the same reason why having a debate with a child is pointless. It's utterly pointless. It is a exercise in frustration. He battered a woman that knocked on his door. He got a lot of harassment after your body... Oh, I see. Well, he is your body, my choice. I do like that. he is a shit stirrer. He's not a good one, but he is a prolific one. He is very in, the public eye. He pushed her down the steps and stole her phone. Ah, I see. So it's a trumped up charge. I get it. Don't forget the septum ring. The septum ring. Hassan Piker is literally just... The funniest thing Hassan Piker ever did was be the name that fucking... Oh, sorry. Sorry. I should say the funniest thing he ever did was be Cenk Uygur's nephew, which I always have to thank fucking Sean from... I can't remember the name of the channel. But that's all he used to call him. Was Cenk's nephew. I was like, what a way to just like so elegantly downdress someone, or dress someone down, or downplay their importance. Just like Cenk's nephew. Like, oh boy. Which is fucking hilarious, because Hassan actually got way more popular with like the younger demographic than Cenk ever could. But he is an example of just how stupid people are when they're young, and how they just believe the world is what they like. People get to a certain age around like teenage years and into young adulthood where they know everything. You can't tell them anything. They know it all. And having conversations with these people is like beating your head against a fucking wall, because they are so assured that they know what they're talking about, and they will hear nothing else. They're not interested in learning. Their days of learning are over. They've learned it all, and now they can't wait to tell you everything they've learned, which is usually whatever, you know, whatever seemed the most interesting to them. And Hasan Piker exemplifies that. He is the poster child of that. And he speaks to an entire demographic of kids whose whole livelihood is just rebel at all costs. And don't actually think. Just listen to what the person we've labeled as smart. And Destiny got a lot of this too. Destiny was being labeled with the whole, this person's smart. So we're going to just listen to everything they have to say as fact and regurgitate and recite the shit they're saying. But they're not smart. They're not smart at all. They're just passionate and forceful about what they're doing. They're pundits, if they will. There's no difference between them and, like, I don't know, who's a good right-wing pundit from the old days? Rush Limbaugh, you know? Loved by conservatives in the fucking Corn Belt, Bible Belt, and things like that. Loved, absolutely despised on the left. Hated in the Democratic circles. In the Beltway. Beltway Dems fucking couldn't stand him. And did he know what he was talking about half the time? No. But he was a personality. That's all these people are. They're just personalities. The fact that they're held up as some sort of like modern day intellectual could tell you everything you need to know about how anti-intellectual our youth is. And how far our school systems have really fallen, and how we more or less have just turned our entire nation into a daycare system for eternal helicopter parenting. It's fucking crazy. You want to know how Rome fell? It's not. I'm not even joking. This is we followed the blueprints of it almost to a T. We're getting to this point where we've eradicated any sense of nobility or structure or any sort of real need to teach our children to fend for themselves. And when you've done that, you've created this giant gaping hole in society of if anything within our structural society and this support system that we've created fails, we're going to lose millions, if not billions of people at this point. Because they're simply not going to know how to live. And they're just going to die off. Because they never got taught anything. They never learned anything. Then you get the offhand... This is why I hate the fucking media with a passion. Because you'll get the offhand person who goes out there and says some shit like, well, you know, maybe there are too many people. You know, offhand comment. And then the media turns that into, listen to this person's position. Like, position? Like, when did it become their position? They just said some shit. And then you'll get, like, the people who will abso-fucking-lutely turn that into, like, a crusade. Like, to try to disprove, like, there's too many people, well, we're going to prove that, like, yeah, it's just a flippant remark. Like, when did we lose the capacity for jokes and satire? You know, and things like that. It's the no fun brigade took over. It's like everyone's mom. Everyone became their mom. Hasan is always preaching communism, no guns, no walls, etc. Hasan he's a grifter to the highest order because he is the product of wealth. And he is very wealthy. And for him he is, what do they call that? There's a term for it. There's a term for it, but I can't remember what it's called. But he's just he's just one of these idiot dipshit Marxists. Like, what's his name? Destiny's clone. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. I blame Obama, no fun zone. I've been blaming people since the new millennium. The helicopter parenting of the late 90s has birthed into this planet the millennials who just believe everything is a fucking crusade, everything is a struggle to the fucking be-all, end-all. I remember when I first came into it when I started to take notice of it, it was the straight edge thing. And I'm like, what are you, like, all the kids that I saw and met were all Christians, in name only, by the way. And they were all straight edge. I'm like, why are you doing this? They're like, well, we just don't believe in that poison. We don't believe in blah, 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 blah. It's like, all right, cool, but you're young. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, this is the time to be living your life. This is the time to be learning and growing and experimenting. You're not going to have this luxury when you're later in life, because these are the things that are going to kill you later in life. At this age, you can fucking do heroin and then bounce back the fucking next day chipper as all hell. You could decide to do it once and then never do it again and just live your life. You could smoke some crack and be fine the next day. You kids have it so... You have the world at your feet. You can do whatever you want. Now is the time to explore. So get to exploring. No. We're going to be better than that. It's like, so you just want to be a nub? A boring nub, a nothing. It's like you want to live like your fucking parents. Like, God, how uninspiring is that? And this is within the music world. I mean, that's where my experience came from. It's going to these like all ages clubs, and these kids were just so straight. They were like little Nazi youth. You know, it was fucking disgusting. It was like, you people disgust me. And then we'd go back to the bar and fucking get wasted. You know, before our own shows. It's like, and we're like twice their age, so it's like, you know. But I'm just like, you kids are wasting you're living a fucking lie. You're living a lie. You're lying to yourselves, and you're trying to fit into this mold that is put on you by someone else, and you're going to run screaming, and they did. As society as a whole, they ran screaming from it. They ran the whole other way. But now what do you got? I think about this a lot. I watch Game Grumps. Been watching Game Grumps for several years. There's a guy on there named Daniel Avidan. And that's how I got introduced to Game Grumps, was Dan Avidan. Because I saw this thing come up in my YouTube feed, and it was this covers album with him and these two acoustic guitar players. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I listened to it, and I'm like, and it had millions of views. I'm like, who is this guy who can't sing? And why is everyone so into him? And then I realized, I found out, he's the other half of Game Grumps, because I really hadn't paid attention or knew anything about Game Grumps since JonTron left. And I was like, okay, so let me check this out. And then I was like, he's kind of funny. This is kind of funny. Let me get into it. But I realized while watching these Game Grumps over time, there was this thing where it's like everyone is afraid to just talk. You know, these guys they'll joke and they'll do this edgy humor and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But then there's certain lines where it's like they'll say something and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. And they have to say that because they know that someone is going to jump their ass online and start calling them this and calling them that, blah, 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 and try to destroy their livelihoods because they said something. And one of the weirdest parts was when, like, it was like a recent one where they're playing a game called Harvester. And there's a part where you can, when you're in this lodge or whatever, and you can pay to have sex with a prostitute. And Dan Avidan, like, was making a joke about how, like, you know, like trusting a whore or something like that. And he said whore. And then he backpedals it later. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said whore. I should have said sex worker. I'm like, why? That's like, and that got me thinking, I'm like, is this where we are as in a society where the prostitutes and whores have us convinced that they're not fucked up in the head? And let me reiterate. Let me back up. Whores and prostitutes have us convinced that they actually care enough to get offended. I'm sorry. Prostitutes have skin made of leather, tough leather. They are fucking haggard. They have been around the block. They don't get easily offended. So it's funny to me to think, well, we can't offend the prostitute. Are you out of your fucking mind? Can't offend a prostitute? It's like, what is this lie that we're trying to live? Like, how can, I mean, we've lived over the course of the past 10 years, society has tried to live very ridiculous lies, trying to convince ourselves that these just incredibly dumb things are real. One of the hardest for me to believe is that people actually believe prostitutes get offended. And one of the other best parts was like during the whole, back during Trump's first term, when they brought out that fucking porn star. And it's like the left was wheeling her around like, oh, well, look what Donald Trump had sex with this porn star and then paid her off, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, and they're talking about her like, oh, the poor porn star. It's like, what? It's like she's trying to get paid. She's trying to get money. She's extorting him. She's not the good person in this. The whole reason he's trying to pay her hush money is because she's a dirty whore trying to blackmail him for money. She's trying to leverage her little secret with him to disrupt his fucking political campaign for money. Yet we're going to portray her as the victim. This is not a good situation, no matter how you slice it. And the fact that people are like, oh, well, we have to go to bat for her. Are you kidding me? That's where we are in society? I mean, if we're going to get biblical, we could talk about how, Barabbas and Jesus. Like we want the killer. Instead of the guy who the weird cultist guy with the disciples who claims to be the Son of God, we would rather you free the proven rapist and killer. Because this guy offends us. It's bonkers. And that's why I say, like, people talk about the Bible not being real. It's like, when things are happening right now that are talked about happening in the Bible, it just goes to show you basically how real that book actually is. Like, it is a chronicling of our history, no matter if you want to believe it or not. If you want to believe the overarching message of it, like there is a God and Jesus is the Son of God and blah, 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 fine. But to say that the stories that take place in that book didn't happen, now you're just being silly. There's too much reality. There's too much human behavior present in that book for it to not be real. A real chronicling of our past. But that's what I mean, like when we have to tell ourselves horse shit and change narratives and change stories. It's like we're trying to control our own understanding of we're trying to control our future by changing the past. If that could somehow work, I don't know. Just preemptively pardon everyone. I can tell you this much: if Trump doesn't pardon the J6 people, then he's going to lose a lot of fucking. It doesn't matter at this point. He's got his second term. It doesn't. He doesn't have to do it. But if he's a man of principle and like he wants to be believed to be, he has to pardon all those people because they're political prisoners. It's one of the most disgusting things our country's ever done. And if he doesn't pardon them, then I think the right's going to turn on him again like they did his last term. They're going to turn on him hard because that's like one of those things like you sounded the cry to your base and you got them mobilized and you got them out there. Sure, it went to shit, but they believe hard enough in you and so hardcore enough in you that they showed up and wanted to and were motivated and whatever. Sure. But that's my thing. Going to jail for misdemeanors, crimes, trespassing, whatever, cool. They did that, you can't take that away. But to try to put them in some sort of like sedition or any sort of like real like threat to the nation sort of shit, that's bullshit. It always was bullshit. So if any of them are still in jail, he needs to pardon them. But if there's one thing I can say for sure about all of that with Trump is that I think a lot of people have called it already, that it's just not going to be the same as it was 2016. 2016 on had so many people like riled up because they just didn't see it coming, and they were so shocked that it was like 4 years of aftershock of just utter surprise, and they were so astonished. But we've all been through that now, and that's what I was saying all year. Like I don't know, this looks bad for Trump. I'm like, nothing can possibly look bad for Trump. Nothing. Like they spent the past 8 years trashing this dude. If they can't make anything stick up to this point, they're never going to make anything stick. It's like he has literally become the Teflon Don. Abso-fucking-lutely. A creature of their own manifest. I mean, seriously. And now we get him as president again. A lot of people think, oh, well, it comes at a time when things are the most dire and our country is at its worst, and it's gonna... I'm surprised that rabble-rousing still fucking works. Have I seen the meltdowns? Yeah, I've seen the meltdowns. It's like... But even they just don't seem as legitimate. I said this before, that it's rage bait. What it is it's people know that now's the time to do it because everyone's watching, and they're going to get their videos are going to get picked up by other sources. They're going to be shown. They're going to get out there, and the more it's all about self-promotion. It's all about getting themselves out there and getting noticed. You know, and the fucking art, the theater fags of this country and the world as a whole have kind of ruled the roost for a long time, and they've made it to where if you can declare yourself anti this, pro this, and you firmly put yourself on the side of something else, it's going to lead to better opportunities for you. At least that was the thought process. That was what they told themselves. But that's not the way it panned out, and so they couldn't even keep that lie going. So the mentality of the theater fag is dead as a doornail. Those arguments aren't even going to hold water anymore, and that's why this outrage shit is so shallow and transparent. It's like, we see what you're doing, and it's just dumb. You know, back in 2016, everything was turned up to a fucking 11. It was incredible. Like just the campaign trail where Trump was like dunking on Jeb Bush and all this shit. It's like, it was so hilarious, everything that was going on. And then the aftermath, everything was just top tier hilarity. And the one thing I think everyone can truly say after 4 years of Trump and then 4 years of Biden is that it's just not that funny anymore. I think everyone's just, I mean, I get a kick out of it when like Trump does something or says something funny, like I usually don't laugh or get I don't have a sense of humor about a lot of this shit anymore because I've seen it so much. But something did happen lately that made me laugh, and it was Trump referring to Justin Trudeau as the governor of Canada. I was fucking laughing my ass off when I saw it. I was like, oh my god, that is fucking great. That is so great. And he was so fucking butthurt over that. I'm like, that's the kind of Trump that you want. That's the Trump that you're like, yeah, fuck Canada. Fuck these idiots. It's like, we got to think about ourselves. We got to focus on ourselves. It's like, and we're gonna start by taking down Justin Trudeau a peg. Governor of the state of Canada. I love it. You gotta go? All right, see you later, Red Feather. Thanks for stopping by. I did see what's his name, Justin Trudeau's opposition, that Poilievre guy or whatever his name is, making some very stern and, you know, dire statements about Trump's proposed tariffs. And I'm like, you know, this is how a lot of politics works. A lot of people like to, it's like a lot of blustery ballyhoo. A lot of people get nervous about what someone's going to do, especially when you, it's interesting to me being in the United States because I'm sort of insulated from the perspective of the rest of the world, so to speak. It would be more interesting if, it would be interesting to me to see another country, to be focused on another country's leadership, like a lot of the world is to the United States, and be like, you know, oh, what did this prime minister say? Or what did that prime minister say? What did this president say? Like, what are they going to do? Oh no, they're talking about, like, but no other country exerts that much influence or control over the rest of the world like the United States does. And it's weird for me to talk about that from such a perspective of, I live in the United States. I get to benefit from the system that basically is rolling and controlling. And it's hard, you know, I think a lot of people tend to believe that if you're not subjugated to the policies that your country is putting out there, that you can't really speak knowledgeably about it. True, to a certain extent. I mean, I don't know how America's foreign policy affects other countries. I would assume their leadership is competent enough. And this one thing that enrages me. When people make their boohoo poor us claims about America's foreign policy, they're literally saying, well, we have to leave it up to the United States because our own politicians, our own government and elected officials can't fucking figure anything out themselves. You know, they can't make anything right for their people. They have no capacity to govern and to ensure that we get what we need. So we have to rely on this other. That's why I believe that in a lot of cases, the United States is more or less a foil that governors or governments around the world use to pull the wool over their own people's eyes. Like, oh, it's not us, it's the U.S. Talk to you. Oh, Trump's tariffs. Oh boy, he's gonna do such terrible things to our country. It's like you're already doing, especially in the case of Canada, you've already been doing shitty job with your countrymen. You've already been doing a shitty job as the government. To then start to turn that around and say, oh, well, now it's all going to be Trump's fault. Trump's the villain. Blame Trump. Don't blame us. We want to keep our seats. We want to keep our jobs. Blame Trump. Anyone, all you need to go up against Trump is a little bit of balls. Be a stand-up person. Be willing to talk things out and to push back if necessary. Because a person like Trump is going to steamroll you if given the opportunity. Because he's a businessman, he's hard-nosed, and he wants to get what he wants to get. But if you're just as hard-nosed and you can push back, that you get respect. You don't get danger. You don't get threats. You know, he's not a dictator. No matter what the fucking left has billed him to be, he doesn't have that sort of control. And I've said that for many years, that we have the potential rise of Nazism in the United States. No, because the culture within the United States is not such that would ever give rise to a fascist regime. It's just not going to happen. There's not going to be a Nazi party in the United States because the people themselves do not have the capacity to allow that to occur. We are too multicultural. Where our freedoms allow us to not get sucked into this ideological or political echo chamber like other countries could. It's just not going to happen. Not to mention, we are on the top of the fucking food chain. You know, you're talking about a country that had been kicked, their dick was in the dirt for a long fucking time, and they were miserable, and they were fucking sullied. And a lot of people, after World War I, weren't really happy with the outcome of that fucking war. And that's kind of what brought about World War II. I mean, you had a lot of disgruntled people. You had a lot of sanctions. You had a lot of, they were the worldwide foil. A lot of millions and millions of people died, and it was all fucking Germany's fault. So let's blame Germany. Let's blame Germany. And they play kick the can with Germany for 20 fucking years. the United States does not have to ever deal with that, ever. So we cannot be pushed into anything that gets talked about. It's the media itself doing it, trumping it up, and which I also think is just great. I really do. I think that, using that colloquial term of trumping something up with a president named Donald Trump, it's just so appropriate. It really is. It's somehow like cosmically right. But ultimately, it's like you can't convince the United States to go down that road, no matter who's in office, because the president doesn't hold that much power. I also think it's hilarious how everything I said about fucking Joe Biden was right. Every single thing. I have been proven right beyond a shadow of a doubt. Every fucking thing I said. I called I called it from day one. I called it. That he was not the choice of the DNC. He was not the candidate they wanted to put forward, but he was the one that resonated best with the fucking people. I also said that Kamala Harris was his choice as vice president, not the DNC's. They wanted someone else. He handpicked Kamala Harris to isolate and shield himself from the DNC throwing his ass out of the presidency within his first term or whatever. I called that shit. And then when they finally did it, because they couldn't cover for his fucking cognitive horse shit, decline anymore, he threw his weight behind Kamala Harris because he knew that progressive nonsense was going to carry. So he double fucked them. Because they already he maintained through the primary, and it's like, we're not going to run against Biden. He's going to be just fine until the first debate with Trump, and then he throws his support behind fucking Kamala Harris because he's like, I'm getting what's good for me. I'm getting mine. These guys have tried to fuck me the entire way. I am the laughingstock of my own party. And the fact that I got elected was because of because of COVID. But he's just like, fuck them. They tried to take this away from me, and now they are finally getting to take away from me. So I'm just going to fuck them right back, and I'm going to guarantee. Like, you think you're going to lose the election if I stay in the race? Well, you're definitely going to lose the election because you're going to run Kamala Harris instead of anyone else you wanted. You're not going to be able to do another primary. Whatever designs or ideas you had, I'm throwing a monkey wrench in that. And he did. He would have rather Trump become president than his party be able to just run roughshod over his term and his presidency the way they did. And you could even argue, if you were a Democrat, it's for the good of the party, and we're all about the integrity and the good of the party. Joe Biden was never about the party. He was always about himself. That's why I thought it was funny when he was the nominee back in 2020. It's like, really? He's gonna be the nominee? It's like, he's not fucking party line. Biden's all about Biden. How's this gonna play out? Especially coming into it with the whole COVID thing. It's like, how the fuck is this gonna work out? And of course it didn't. And but no one knew at that point, at least, just how bad things were and how off the fucking, off the plantation he actually was. I mean, that's the crazy part. I think a lot of people, when it comes to the elections, talk about how Kamala Harris wasn't open enough. She didn't do interviews, this and that. She really, and this is going to be the terrible sticking point that's going to go into 2028, is that Democrats are going to be chanting backwards and forwards, we got to get our candidate on Joe Rogan. We got to, whoever it is, we got to get him on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's going to be the key to the presidency. And you're going to hear all these pundits talk about Joe Rogan being the key. Like, it's like, oh, Jesus. Like, for one thing, if Joe Rogan still has a podcast in 2028, I highly doubt it's going to be as popular as it has been. But they'll treat it as such. I mean, they tried to get their Kamala on these podcast no one's ever heard. That was the funniest part. Like and then you hear all these stories about how they're paying these people all these big bucks to vouch for them and get them on these shows or whatever. And the one about them rebuilding this girl's set like at the White House because Kamala apparently can't leave the White. I don't know. That was hilarious. But the idea that they thought that was actually going to have some sort of impact. I'm like, who knows what that is? Like kids? Is it a TikTok thing? It's like the kids who are on TikTok can't vote. They're too young to vote. Like, why are you pursuing kids who can't vote? That's insane. It's like, let's take all the money out of your parents' pocket and make everything doubly hard, triply hard, pay for. But as long as you got the kids chirping in their parents' ear, somehow it's all going to magically work out. The kids don't pay the bills. The kids don't have any responsibility. And they're all really fucking stupid. So they're easily malleable. Of course you can talk them into dumb shit. The promises of this and that, whatever sort of pie in the sky idealism, you can sell them story time horse shit. Because they'll believe it. Because they have no worldly experience. And they don't have to put their money where their mouth is because they don't have any money. So I've never understood this we got to go for the kids aspect that the Dems did. I think it's overarchingly hilarious though, because I'm not a conservative. I've never voted, but even if I did vote, I would never vote Republican. No, I shouldn't say never. I just never thought I ever would. If I did vote this election cycle for the president, I would have voted for Trump. There was just no other way. But I mean, I'm more left-leaning than I am anything else. I've always been more left-leaning. But the Democratic Party for the past 20 years has been a fucking embarrassment. An absolute joke. And the idealism that they have grasped onto in order to maintain the youth market is just bonkers as well. I mean, you want to talk about boomer philosophy and just not having even the faintest idea of what you're trying to grab onto or latch onto. That seems to be every policy that's been driven by the left for the past 20 years in this country. And it's just like, it just doesn't work. And clearly it doesn't work. A lot of people still argue that 2020 was a rigged election. When you look at the numbers, it's really hard to deny that something did not. There's something happened. Something happened in 2020. Now, obviously something happened. COVID happened. Now, you could almost argue that since COVID was going on, see, I really feel like if we could ever get to the bottom of it and ever get all the information found out and turned over and deep dives and deep studies into what occurred in 2020, I think you would find corruption for sure. I think you would find tampering and voter manipulation, literal election rigging going on. Because I think they thought they would never get caught and they would never get away. Because the big thing was like there was a lot of electronic voting going on because we had COVID. And COVID was kind of keeping people away from public places and whatever. So we have to keep the operation, the mechanism of democracy going. So we have to open up these channels, these new channels to new types of voting, which was the preclusion. And it was basically a preview, if you will, into the dystopia of what the future would hold if we allowed that shit to run roughshod. If that was just the way that elections were going to be done going forward, whoever ran the voting apparatus controlled the government. That's the way it would be. And clearly, those who ran the voting apparatus in 2020 favored the DNC. And when, like, what was it, 14 to 16, it may even be more than that, like tens of millions more votes show up in that particular year than have ever shown up in any other year as for voting, including this recent election cycle, which has gone back to, you know, this almost tried and true typical standard numbers. It's crazy to say, no, it was just a fluke. Yeah, but what caused the fluke? Is no one going to ask these questions? Why are we now forbidden to ask the questions? Why are we forbidden from anything in the land of the free? But that's where it's all the lie. The lie is so pervasive, and it works on so many different levels and layers, because it's lies upon lies upon lies. You can't expose one without opening it up for more. And then if you just keep going down the rabbit hole of exploring and exposing lies, you'll realize the whole system is just lies. It's hard to just fathom doing, you know, what it's all supposed to be for. I mean, outside of just, you know, fun and games. But that, I say that year after year. It's all just fun and games. Real people get hurt, though, in fun and games. Real people lose their lives. Fuck them. I mean, if you don't want to get killed in a riot, don't go to the riot. I mean, if you don't... I guess I look at it this way. Well, what about the people who, you know, live there? Like, the riots didn't happen in fucking residential areas. I mean, let's not lie to ourselves here. It's not as though, like, you went to some residential area and houses were being burnt down. No, it was businesses. It was commercial districts where this was happening. So you had to be in attendance. You had to go to this thing. It just didn't fall upon you. You weren't some hapless, innocent victim. It was a showing up kind of situation. So that's what I mean. Like, it's a lot of horseshit. It's a lot of ballyhoo that they try to sneak right past you to make a case about this or that. You know, but you could prevent a lot of these things. If you don't want to get addicted to drugs or whatever, or have your children get addicted to drugs, try living in an area where there's not a lot of drugs. I can be, just because I am who I am, I can say this, you know, everyone has to make a choice in their life, especially when you are bringing other people into this world, and your responsibility to care and nurture for children that you bring into the world. I think that should be paramount. And with a lot of parents, it's not. And they don't want to admit it. They will never admit it. They will never cop to it, face up to it. You could never convince them of it. But their actions betray their words and their intentions. If you care about your kids, and your kids are primary, then why would you ever put them in a situation that could potentially risk their future life or whatever, you know, whatever possibilities they have, just for your own gains, your own selfish reasons? And I say that to anyone who's who with modest means, or at least means of a certain degree, trying to raise their kids within the city. And I understand, living in the city, it's convenient as all hell. There's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more opportunity for better pay. And it's also a convenience aspect where you don't have to commute hours upon hours a day from the suburbs to get into the city. But you put your kids right in the fucking lion's den. I mean, you have to expect shit's going to happen. Things could go either way. And if you cared about your kids, you would try to get them away from that environment. You'd be like, even if I have to change careers, change jobs, whatever, my children having, you know, a safe environment where they can grow up without the fears of this and that, and still have opportunities, and still have a good head on their shoulders, still get a good education, and still have the best possibilities for their future without having to have all these unnecessarily needless risks of being in this environment that could potentially cause harm or death. Wouldn't you do that? No. And I'm not saying that the suburbs are some magical place where nothing happens, or rural areas aren't like that. I mean, you can fall into bad places and with bad people no matter where you are. I mean, shit. I'm from my town is literally like the trailer park of the Midwest. I mean, it's not even a big town. Like fucking 5,900 people is my hometown. Yet, massive amounts of fucking drugs. Which only got worse over the years. Only got worse. Harder drugs, better accessibility, more available. I've had so many fucking friends die from drug overdoses, it's not even funny. But I also ran with a fucking shit crowd. I mean, I didn't come up with any, from good means or with a lot of opportunity. I was fucking raised in a trailer, I had to crawl my way up from where I came from, and honestly, at the end of the day, didn't get that far. I still bear a lot of the emotional baggage of my past. I'm one decision away from just being exactly like my father. To basically being him. I'm so close to him now, it's crazy. And for a person who spent their entire life struggling to not be that person, it's funny for me to come this close to being exactly like him. It's funny. It's funny to me. But that's one of those things that I can't explain as to why I am the way I am, and the decisions and choices I make. That seems to be something that was just kind of passed along to me genetically. My father has it. He's the same way, and even though we have never really been close, I somehow managed to be pretty much exactly like him. And ultimately, if I were alone, I could imagine I would be just like him. I don't know. I don't know if I would hoard like he does. That would be a hard, because I'm not a dirty person. I'm not a person who could just be okay with like open filth and just disgust. I mean, I don't know why my dad is that way. I've never understood that aspect of my dad. He is a hoarder, by the way. He lives with my sister now, but that's just because he's too old and too out of it to be able to take care of himself. When he went to the hospital for his what do you call it? Oh, he had sepsis, and his kidneys had shut down, and his it looked like he was going to die. It really looked like he was on his last legs and he was pretty much going to die. Serious infections, serious viral infections and bacterial infections, shutting down a lot of his what do you call it? Like urinary tract. Kidneys were shut down. I think his liver was starting to turn necrotic. A lot of problems. But my mom and I went over to his house, and we were going to clean things up. And my mom had never seen how my dad lives after they got a divorce. And she was just blown away. I was used to it. I grew up seeing how my dad lived. It wasn't the first time I'd cleaned my dad's house. But she just could not believe the mountains of garbage and the piles of fucking rotten food that was just stacked up everywhere. Just he had a bedroom that looked like a goddamn hardware store. He had mounted hooks on the fucking walls and just was going and buying like all these tools and all this stuff and literally just mounting them on the wall like it was a store. And I'm like, why? It's like, you're not going to use any. Why would. That's just insanity. But my father and I aren't close, so I don't bother to even try to ask those questions. I just let it. I dismiss it. To me, it's just a task to go in. It's like, all right, well, we're going to clean it up for him. That way, when he gets out of the hospital, he can come back to a clean house at least. He doesn't, try to mitigate this whole, infection thing by getting rid of a lot of the sources of the, the infections and bacteria and all that. But we spent a week there just throwing stuff out. I had to rent a dumpster. That we had to fill probably 4 times over with all the stuff that was in there. And he never went back. He's living with my sister now. His house has been broken into 3 or 4 times, had a bunch of stuff stolen. It's just a mess. It's just a stupid mess. But he got, he came back from the infection. Even though his, a lot of things had shut down. I mean, he was really close to death, but he bounced back. Now, he still kind of has, I think he's going to a specialist, like a viral infectious disease specialist here pretty soon to find out what's going on with him. But that's it just seems to be the thing with him now. I always hear about it, oh yeah, he's sick again. All right. I mean, one day he's going to die. It's just bound. I mean, we're all going to die, but I'm sure one of these days the infections are going to get him, and that'll be that. But, I don't know what else. I don't know what to say about that other than that he's like the model of my existence. Whether he's not my role model or anything. He's not someone I ever aspired to be. I just ended up becoming him because there's a lot of aspects of the way he is that I am too. I guess it could be summed up very simply. I spent the last 2 weeks sitting on my couch playing a fucking video game and not really leaving the house. I'd make my meals. I'd take my showers, change my clothes, and then just sit, take the dogs out occasionally, and that was it. I took my vacation, just sitting on my couch. And I thought, man, this is all my life really is, isn't it? And I think that's where a lot of what I'm feeling now is coming from. It's knowing that I literally just sat around and did nothing for 2 weeks, and how shitty that makes me feel. But at the same time, that's a lie too. It's weird because I always feel like there's 2 of me. There's 2 people within me. There's one who fights diligently and relentlessly against this propensity I have to just fall into this slump of being this lazy turd that does nothing and just sits around and wastes his entire existence away, sinking further and further into depression. And then there's the person who's just like, what's so bad about doing nothing? What's so wrong with just hanging out and doing whatever you want? And just, if you choose to do nothing, then do it. Why do you have to live up to anyone else's standards but your own? And there's these 2 conflicting sides of me that are always at war. And the older I get, when I was younger, it was easier to push down the one because the lazy voice, because I had so many friends who were outgoing and wanted to do stuff. I was invigorated, being around them and hanging around with them. I was just like, yeah, let's go. I was always going and doing. Everything was like, all gas, no brakes. But the older you get, the less you see of these people. And the more your life just sort of becomes this lonely endeavor where it's easy to just start to see the other side. And, in a lot of cases, maybe that's just the way everyone is. People get old, they slow down, they do less, They become more crotchety and more reserved. This is why a lot of people say, "Oh well, my mom's watching a lot of Fox News and blah blah blah, and she won't do this." And they're like, "Well, I have friends who do this, who tell me this, and I'm like, you know what? I understand it. I understand it because it's just so easy when you're alone to just kind of say, well, this is it. It's the way it's going to be. It's hard to force yourself to get out and do stuff that really just, I mean, at least for me, it's hard. It's tough as nails to force myself to do stuff just for me because I'm just as content doing nothing. As a matter of fact, I'm more content doing nothing than I am actually putting in the effort to do something. It's easier to do something when other people have an opinion or have stake. There's some sort of stake outside of yourself. You know, the stakes are higher for what you do. And you feel compelled. I mean, at least I feel compelled to follow through on things and do certain things. But when it's all for me, it's like, no, I just don't care. And that's kind of where I am with my job and my career path and everything. It's like, and I've told my wife this, that after my job is, after I'm summarily shown the door, that's it for me. There's no going back to this. I could go out and try to freelance, but I'm almost 50 at this point. Like, I'm going to go out there and compete with people like 30 years my junior, you know, who have way more ambition and energy and drive and passion than I do, who require way less money than I do to live. It's like, you know, I don't have that hunger anymore. I'm an old lion at this point. So I can't compete. And as far as I'm concerned, the marketplace for what I do it's dried up, especially with AI. I mean, what I do is becoming a novelty. It's the kind of thing where you couldn't fathom paying someone to do this sort of stuff. And I think that's what I stopped streaming the social rec stuff because it changed into the indie film thing, and I think it was the last stream I did, I was like, I just thought, man, I really do not want to watch these fucking movies anymore. I don't want to. I was done. I decided I was done with indie film. I mean, I can't express enough how fruitless of an endeavor that actually is. It's like, if you're not doing it for yourself and your own, just to stroke your own ego, I don't know why you're doing it. Because you will never, ever do anything with it. It's not about skill. It's not about uniqueness or the quality of the story or anything. It's all about who you know. It's an industry that's all furthered on who you know and the connections and the you have, the networking you can do. That's all that's ever mattered. And it's so transparent and laid bare before me. I'm not in an environment where that stuff matters. I'm not surrounded by people that could, you know, plug me into any sort of... the people I associate with who are in the industry are wanting themselves. I'm not plugged in. I don't know anyone who could actually further my endeavor or even want to. I know one guy who works for fucking CBS who, if I actually worked him well enough, if I, you know, was on my own, we could possibly start up a production company. But now you're talking crazy because it's like, what am I going to do? Like, I need a certain amount of money and he's got to go out and do a certain amount of work. And it's like, we're both doing work, of course, but it's like, it's asking a lot. It's expecting a lot. And I know he tried to go out and do that stuff on his own, and he didn't even do it before he got the job at CBS. So it's like, you know, that's just one of those things where you realize, like, the people I know, I don't even really know if they actually want to do anything either. So I just resigned myself to the idea that I'm just going to be... My plan, of course, is to pay off all my debt, or as much as I want. Well, by the end of 2025, if I lose my job, I fully intend to cash out my pension and 401k and pay off the house and all my other debt that I've been kind of carrying around for several years, to the point where our bill system, our monthly expenses is basically just bills and the mortgage and insurance. And that's it. And what that really does is it frees me up to basically not have to make as much money as I'm making. I could work anywhere. I could do anything. That's something I haven't been able to say for over 20 years. It would be so freeing in a sense to just be like, the shackles are off. I can, if I do work, I can work anywhere. But that's not saying a whole lot because I haven't worked a real job in 20 fucking years. It's a scary prospect, but it's also the reality of my situation. And I'm not really depressed. I'm a part of me. I guess I should be saying this. For 20 years, I've been at my company. 21 in March of this upcoming year, and I've been working toward this concept of retirement. And I've got about 16 years left before I can retire. Before I'm 65. Actually, it's more than that. I think it's 17. Yeah, it's 17 based on this year. So, what happens in 17 years? Well, I turn 65. What happens after that? I get my full retirement. What does my retirement consist of? Well, assuming I make it to 65 and the economy doesn't go to complete horseshit, $1.1 million. That's my total cash value fully vested, 1.1 million. What does that get me? Basically, whatever the equivalent of my salary or my pay at that point in time is basically what I'd be carrying on until the day I die, which I believe is around $90-some thousand, something like that. So I'm like, okay, cool, fine. That sounds great. I don't have to work anymore, and I'll be making, I can quit and I can still be making money, basically. I'll be making as much as I was, working for the company. Cool. Sounds great. Awesome. Don't have to ever worry about money again. Don't have to work. But you got to work for a long time to get to that point. There's a lot of, and building everything up to that point is just kind of like, I don't know. It just feels like, what do I need it for? I don't have kids. I don't have grandkids. I've got no one to leave anything to. So I'm like, why in the fuck do I need all that? Now the argument can be made that Sarai and I could go off and do things. But I'm like, we could do that now. We could do a lot of that stuff now. We choose not to. So it comes back to this question of like, what is it that, why do we need all of that? It's like, I feel like, I guess the older I get and the closer to the end I get, the more I start asking the question, why am I not living that life that I want to live now? What's stopping me? What is it I really need? Not this belief system in this structural thing that has been placed in front of me. And because the value is what it is, I'm like, cool, I want to hold on to that. And I'm not going to lie, I do want to hold on to it. But if I lose it, I lose it. I mean, I can't cry about it. I can't, just lay down and die because I don't get my huge pension anymore. I just, but thinking about the possibility of my job coming to an end got me thinking about well, what is it I really need? What is it I want? What is it I really need? What do I want my life to be? And I've entertained a lot of different ideas. One of them was like selling everything and just going out on hikes and just hiking around the world and spending all my money hiking. But I'm like, there is a reality that I have to kind of face, and it's that I like hiking. I just really don't like camping. I've come to that realization over these past several years. I'm not a fan of camping at all. And it's fucking hilarious to say for a guy who backpacks as a recreational thing, and I own a camper. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I fucking hate camping, but yet I do it. I don't know. I guess that's another one of those things where my wife likes camping and I don't, but I'll do it for her. I'm 4 minutes away from the stream ending and then starting back up again. 3 minutes, actually. I don't even know what time it is. 10:15. Sarai's not here?
I don't know.
Well, you would know. You're upstairs.
Well, I've been in my room.
You didn't hear anybody?
No.
Well, it seems kind of odd that she'd be... Well, I mean, it is a party.
Where's the party?
I don't know. But 4 hours... Figured she'd be bored by now.
Well, maybe she's the dog bark.
Well, I've heard the dogs bark a couple times, but not to the degree of her coming home.
I don't think I saw her.
Well, obviously not.
The TV's not on, and the bedroom light's not on.
All right.
So make sure you turn off the lights.
The lights? I will. Not. Oh, boy. I've got to move all this stuff upstairs. I don't even know how the hell I'm going to do that. That's an interesting looking bird. What kind of bird is that? I wonder if that's a baby, looks like a baby blue jay.
I think the dogs have to go out.
You think? Yeah. My dogs have to go out. Well, shit. I guess I should probably take them out. I don't even know what the hell I've been talking about. Things aren't terrible. Everyone, I mean, even if our life is nothing but a lie that we tell ourselves and convince ourselves is real, you know, that's all we got. I think the saddest thing about getting older is that you just realize you've done so much. There's a lot of things that you will do again. There's a lot of things you won't do again, but you know, it's just, it doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything in the end. Being childless is one of the biggest factors of that too. But, you know, We make our choice. We've make our choices. I've made mine, and that's the way it is. Hey, there's a dog. All right, well, I'm going to hang it up. I appreciate anyone who stopped by and decided to check out the stream. Red Feather for hanging out. Dan for watching. Anyone else who's lurking, if anyone. Thanks for watching. And I hope you enjoyed the birds.